How do you extract 30,000 plus people from a bug-infested, excruciatingly hot, treeless mud beach? That's like literally how I saw it described. That was the question for South Korean officials as the once every 4 years World Scout Jamboree hit problem after problem after problem.
Extreme weather warnings in South Korea derailing the World Scout Jamboree.
There were complaints about food scarcity, flooding, and sanitation.
A man from Thailand allegedly walked into the female's shower room on Wednesday.
Oh, and a deadly tropical storm is on the way, basically making landfall today. Evacuating this massive site took an armada of buses, police vehicles, helicopters, all while being hounded by a national press that saw this as a national embarrassment, a disgrace, a fiasco, for which those responsible must be punished. So, how'd they do it? Where did all those scouts go? And just how dire was the situation in the first place?
Inadequate preparation was evident from the Jamboree start on August 1st. Heavy July rain flooded the Saemangam site, forcing participants to set up their tents on top of plastic pallets.
We should say, even before day one, things didn't look good. The site of the Scouts' 25th World Jamboree, and you know, this is a huge 12-day event that drew tens of thousands of teenagers from 150 plus countries. The site was a reclaimed tidal flat, and the area got hit by heavy rain about a week earlier, turning it into a muddy mess and a perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes and flies. But then came the crippling temperatures.
Sweltering heat is cutting the fun short at the World Scout Jamboree. Participants are reporting heat-related sickness, with their home countries also staying on high alert.
South Korea had already been issuing heat warnings, nearly 40 degrees Celsius in some parts. And on the very first day of the Jamboree, there were about 400 cases of heat exhaustion, in part because the site they chose for this huge summertime event had no natural shade, no trees. A makeshift hospital was overwhelmed with sunburns, skin rashes, bug bites, and that was just the beginning. By Friday, just before the weekend, the complaints were starting to pile up. Basic sanitation was an issue.
We were concerned that the toilets weren't being cleaned frequently enough, there wasn't soap in there, and it wasn't safe, and there was rubbish building up as well.
Organizers went into panic mode, throwing money and people at the problem. They announced a 7-fold increase in cleaning staff to more than 500 on site. But it wasn't even just about basic standards of cleanliness. People were getting each other sick. The BBC reported a COVID outbreak hit about 70 campers. And then there was a serious police matter. South Korean delegates were outraged when a male scout leader with the Thai delegation was caught showering in the women's shower facility.
조직 쪽에 저희가 항의를 냈고 잡아갔습니다. 여지껏 저희는 격리 조치나 강제 추방을 원했지만 아직 오늘 현재까지도 어떠한 조치도 이루어지지 않았습니다.
An investigation concluded it was just a misunderstanding. Apparently he hadn't seen the signage, but it really rattled the campers. Like, they were scared and angry that the man was let off with just a warning. They blasted organizers for not taking women's safety seriously, and South Korean scout leaders pulled almost 100 of their own campers off site. And remember, this is all happening in South Korea. But they wouldn't be the only ones to peace out. So at this point, the South Korean president is technically on vacation, except he's frantically doing damage control from afar. This was, after all, an event the organizers had 6 years to plan. But Korean media called the preparations unbelievably poor. Like, how do you expect a wide open field in the summer heat with no trees, poor drainage, the most rudimentary showers and toilets to hold up for 43,000 people over an almost 2-week period?
From scorching temperatures and overflowing trash to filthy toilets and bug-infested fields.
The president authorized unlimited air-conditioned buses to get on site pronto. Military tents were set up for shade. But by this point, and keep in mind, we're like 5-6 days in, thousands of scouts had had enough.
The UK, the largest contingent of more than 4,000 scouts, moved its delegates to a hotel, but delegates from the US are opting to walk away.
The UK scout contingent was the largest of them all, 4,500 strong. They left, headed straight for the capital, Seoul, hundreds of kilometers away.
We wanted them to have a normal Jamboree experience, but of course, from our point of view, it wasn't safe enough for them to do that.
The US contingent, more than 1,000 people, also left, headed for an American military base a few hours away. Singapore, New Zealand made the same decision, like, let's cut our losses, get the heck out of here. And then, the biggest blow of all.
It's this tropical storm that hit Japan over the weekend that's now making its way over to South Korea.
Everything up until this must have had the organizers thinking, we can adapt. We can hold this thing together. We just have to get to the finish line. But the threat of what was already a deadly typhoon about to make landfall was too much. Right after the weekend, the decision was made to get everybody out. The site was no longer safe.
All scouts taking part in the World Jamboree in South Korea are to be evacuated from the campsite early because of an incoming typhoon.
1,000 buses were mobilized, 270 police vehicles, 4 helicopters ordered to help escort everyone out. The South Korean president, back from holiday early to help oversee the operation. And first thing, 9 a.m. on Tuesday, local time, everyone was moved inland, out of the southwest where the storm was slated to hit. At least 3,100 scouts were sent to Seoul, 3,200 to nearby Incheon, 9,000 to 25 different venues in North and South Chungcheong provinces. In all, they were scattered across more than 100 separate venues, like hotels, university dorms, government buildings, basically whatever they could find, across 8 different provinces. If nothing else, as of this moment, we can say they dodged the storm. But the Jamboree isn't over. In a statement from the World Organization of the Scout Movement, they called all of this very unlucky. This is the first time in more than 100 years of World Scout Jamborees that we have had to face such compounded challenges. But in the words of Chief Scout and survivalist Bear Grylls, they will improvise, adapt, and overcome.
One thing about Scouts is that it's all about teaching kids resiliency. And I think this is doing that. Real life is like that. Things don't go the way we want them to go.
So what does a more urban jamboree actually look like? Well, instead of climbing and camping, maybe now it's seeing the sights, sitting at restaurants. And the South Korean government very much hopes the event will still have a happy ending. The Jamboree closing ceremony will now be held this Saturday at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. There'll even be a K-pop concert afterwards. But the flip side, Korean media has called for government heads to roll. Critics say this was all very foreseeable, very preventable, if only so much time and money hadn't been wasted in the years of lead up to such a large, important event. National scouting groups have had to tap their own reserves to cover costs. And the impact of that could go well beyond just a couple of tough weeks in the heat. The financial impact for all involved could last years.